My name is Matt Plante. I am the head coach of the U18 team with the CCYHA Selects Academy. We play a lot of the split season teams like Yale, Mid-Fairfield within Connecticut, and then you have the Riverhawks and the Seahawks last year, and they're all basically kids that are at various prep schools in Connecticut, and what they do is before their prep school season starts, they play with these teams in the fall on the weekends. So they're split season teams. Yale and Mid-Fairfield are typically prep school all-star teams. They're very good teams with a lot of the top players from the various prep schools throughout Connecticut. This year at the U18 level, there were 4 teams in the New England district that were ranked in the top 8 in the country. So it was a very grueling year for U18 in New England this year. And typically on any given year, you've got, hopefully ourselves, Yale and Mid-Fairfield are usually in the top 10. So it's very good competition within our own state and obviously within our own district in New England. When they come to school in September, we pretty much start right away with our practices and our games. I mean, it's, the kids will typically move in the week of Labor Day, a day or two after Labor Day, and then Wednesday everybody's here. They're kind of getting settled in with their schooling and dorm life and all that, and then we start practicing on Thursday and Friday, and then we have our first set of games that Saturday and Sunday. That national tournament is the top 16 teams from all over the country. We try to play the top Tier 1 midget AAA teams in the country. We go out to the Midwest at least once a year. Some years we've gone out twice. It's good for our kids to get that exposure out to the Midwestern schools. So we do at least one of those trips once a year. We play on average anywhere between 7 to 10 tournaments and showcases throughout the year. We're in Boston several times. We have one in Connecticut that we go to, and we have our regional tournament. I actually coached the U16 team last year, and we had a near miss at the national tournament last year. We lost the CompuWare. We were up in that game 5-3, and we ended up losing 6-5. Last year they didn't have a quarterfinal at the national tournament, so as you win your bracket, you go right to the semis, and then you had the championship. So, this year they inserted the quarterfinal game back into the national tournament. So had we had a quarterfinal game last year, we would have advanced at least, because we went 2-1. So anyways, CompuWare ends up winning our bracket. They go on to win a national championship. We had 16 or 17 of those 2000 birth year players on our 16 team last year that moved up to the 18 team this past season, and we all felt we were right there. We all, I think, would agree we were closer than we maybe gave ourselves credit for, but we all felt going into this season that, we're right there, we can do this, and that was a goal of ours. Our goal was to try to get back to the national tournament, give ourselves a chance to try to win it this year. This past season started off really well. We beat some really good teams early on in September, some highly ranked teams, some great wins, and then we kind of hit a little bit of a funk in November at the wrong time because we had our state tournament the first weekend, and then the second weekend was the New England Regional Tournament. So we didn't even advance to the regional tournament. We ended up getting knocked out. The Riverhawks had beat us the first game. It was a 1-0 overtime loss. We actually outshot the Riverhawks 65-9. Their goalie was terrific. They make a play in overtime to win the game. So we had to follow up the next day and play Mid-Fairfield, who was number 8 in the country. So that's kind of a tough draw for a win and move on to the regional, or lose and you go home. And Mid-Fairfield was just better than us for that game. They beat us, and they moved on to the regional, and we didn't. We kind of had to readjust our focus on, okay, the automatic bid wasn't on the table anymore. Now we had to kind of focus on, we were still highly ranked. I think we were number 2 or 3 in the country at that point. So now we had to focus on sustaining success and maintaining a high ranking that give ourselves a chance for an at-large selection. I thought we rebounded pretty well after that loss to Mid-Fairfield. Going into the Christmas break, I believe we were set. We had 7 or 8 wins and 1 shootout loss in those 8 or 9 games, whatever it was. So we kind of got back rolling again, and we went into Christmas break. We had 3 weeks off. Then we came back from Christmas break, and I thought we were a little bit distracted. I think guys maybe were worried about next season, and some guys had skated with some junior teams over the break, and I think that kind of maybe distracted some of our guys a little bit, and we kind of had a funky January. We had a couple of bad losses, a couple good wins. We went out to Detroit and did well. That was kind of in between a couple of weekends where we had some tough weekends and some bad losses, and maybe doubt started to creep in a little bit that could we get to the national tournament, could we turn things around. But towards the end of January, these guys, I give these guys a lot of credit. They stayed together. They overcame a lot of adversity. I don't think anyone going into the season would have dreamed that we wouldn't even have made it to the regional tournament. I think that was kind of just an assumed goal of ours going into the season with the caliber of players that we had. That wasn't meant to be. That wasn't a reality for us. And then we kind of go through some things in January. We overcame that, and then we got really hot end of January, all of February, going into the March break. We won 10 straight, and we outscored our opponents 70-9 in that stretch. So we were kind of just flipped the script from the middle part of January to late January where we just started playing our best hockey. And then we get to the national tournament. We had about 5 weeks off. We came back and practiced for about 8 or 9 days prior to the national tournament. So we had about 3.5 weeks where we hadn't even practiced together as a group. I know some guys had skated over the March break. Obviously it's a little bit different than when you got all the guys together and you can in a practice setting. We did have an exhibition game in that time frame, which helped. But we lose the first game at Nationals to Dallas in a 3-2 shootout loss. I thought our timing was a little bit off. I thought our transitional play and our puck management was a little bit off from where we were. And I think the pressure situation of the game feel, and that long layoff might have had something to do with it. I give Dallas a lot of credit too, though. They were hard, they were heavy against us. They did a terrific job against us, taking advantage of those things, and they go on to win in a shootout. And then we started to kind of get back to form a little bit in the PAL game. I thought that was a good game for us because we had beaten PAL 5 times prior to that game. They played very well against us. They were terrific against us. It was a 2-2 game going into the third period. It started out, they took the 1-0 lead. We came back, made it 2-1. They got a shorthanded goal to tie it up 2-2. Now it's 2-2 going into the third, and we really had to grind that one out, and we did. We found a way to win that game because at that point, losing to Dallas the game before in a shootout, that PAL game was an elimination game basically, because if we had lost that game, we were basically done. We had one more game against Cape Cod, but it would have been irrelevant because we wouldn't have finished in the top 2 to advance to the playoff rounds at Nationals. But we pulled that game out, and then we played Cape Cod, who was in our bracket the first time. And that was that was an elimination game as well. I mean, Cape Cod, if they had won, they were going to win the bracket, and Dallas was going to move on. And ironically, if we had beaten Cape Cod, we won the bracket, and then Cape Cod would have been the 2 seed coming out of our bracket. And we played a terrific game. I mean, we came out flying against Cape Cod. We got a 2-0 lead early in the first, and then we built on that, and they got one back, but then we got 2 quick ones back, 2 power play goals, kind of bang, bang, a minute and 4 seconds apart from each other after they made it 2-1. So now it's 4-1 going into the third. We get a 5th goal in the third. They get one back with about 2 minutes to go, so the game finishes 5-2, but we were terrific in that game. I thought the pace of that game was great. We were awesome. I mean, that was definitely one of our best games of the season, and at the right time too. So we kind of built momentum off of that, beating a team like Cape Cod, who I felt was probably the best team we had played. We had played them in September, and to beat them the way that we did, I thought we were good. I thought we were the better team that game. We were pretty dominant. So that definitely gave us momentum, and that definitely gave us the confidence we needed heading into the playoff rounds. We had a real tough game against Yale. We played Yale earlier in the year twice. Every game against Yale was a 1-goal game. That just seems like how it is with Yale. Every year, it doesn't matter what time of the season, they're all 1-goal games, they're all battles, they all have a playoff type feel to those games. And that quarterfinal game wasn't any different. I mean, they really came out and pushed us in the first period. That was kind of really the only time I felt like we were significantly dominated throughout the tournament was in that first period against Yale. They came out and they outshot us, and they hemmed us in, and come out of the first period, we were fortunate only being down 1. They got 1 kind of late in the first. So to be down 1-0 at that point, we kind of weathered their storm, and then we steadily got ourselves into the game and into our process. Get a goal back on a power play in the second period, that ties it 1-1. Third period was kind of even, and then we get an overtime, and I thought that's where we really took the game over, was in overtime, and we eventually, halfway through the overtime, we finally got the goal that put us through to the semis, and but overtime was huge for us because I thought we settled in, and we just had that will, like we weren't going to lose that game. We found a way to win, and we did. And then we get into the semifinal game against Eastern Mass, and Eastern Mass was playing extremely well at that point in their own right. And I thought we got out to a quick start against them, 2-0 after the first. And then the first 4.5 minutes of the second period, we extended a 2-0 lead to a 5-0 lead. So we were 5-0 going into the third period, and we're in control of the game. We were dominant. We had a few more chances to score. Their goalie made some saves. We missed on some chances, but I thought we could have had a few more on top of the 5 that we had already had at that point. But then Eastern Mass made a push in the third period. They scored a goal to get it 5-1 49 seconds into the period. And then they had the storm of their own coming, and we kind of had to weather that. They got another goal back a few minutes later to make it 5-2, and then they were coming at that point, and we weathered it. We had a couple of big penalty kills, and then we found ourselves later in the third. They're kind of in a desperation situation where they're down 3. They pull their goalie, and we get an empty netter, and then we were on the penalty kill at the end of the game. We end up blocking a shot, and we get a goal with a 2-on-0 goal with about 10 seconds to go to seal the game at 7-2. The game was a little bit closer than the score indicates. And then in the finals against Cape Cod, it was kind of round 2 of the national tournament. We kind of knew what to expect at that point. We had just played them a couple days earlier. I'm sure they felt the same way about us. Probably the first 15 minutes or so of the first period were pretty even. It was a pretty back and forth game. I didn't think either team had too many significant grade A looks. Both teams did a good job of kind of keeping each other in check. I thought we started to come late in that period. We had a few consecutive shifts where we got good zone time and we were pressuring, and we were starting to create more chances for ourselves. And we were fortunate to get a goal with about just over a minute to go in the first period to take the 1-0 lead. A very good individual effort by Zach Jones, just kind of getting, coming out of the zone, getting through the neutral zone. He made a great play on their defender in the offensive zone to get a puck on net, and Shane Pinto drives the net for the rebound to put us up 1-0 with just over a minute to play in the first. So I was glad we got rewarded for our momentum shift towards the end of that period. It was good to get a goal, get rewarded for that, because that, obviously now we're carrying a lead into the second period. And that was probably, in my opinion, our best period of the national tournament game, or the national championship game, because I thought we did a really good job of just kind of spelling their chances. We were great defensively. We were great structurally in all 3 zones. We did a great job defensively. We were good around our net, taking sticks, clearing pucks out of danger, not really giving them any second or third chance opportunities. And our forecheck was terrific as well. We actually scored a goal late in that period off of our forecheck, where there was probably several shifts prior to the goal where they couldn't break out. I thought we did a pretty good job of making them struggle to come 200 feet and kind of hemming them in and getting good zone time in their zone. And we end up getting rewarded off a good forecheck late in the second to give ourselves a 2-0 lead going into the third. And then we're going to the third now up 2-0, and now it was kind of about managing emotion. I mean, that was something we had talked about throughout the week too, just managing our emotion. Focus on winning your next shift. Don't worry about the previous shift, good or bad. You got to focus on winning your next shift. Win the majority of the battles so we can win the war type thing. But the biggest thing going into you're 20 minutes away at that point, up 2-0 from a national championship. It's hard not to get ahead of yourselves, and that's kind of what we were trying to preach to the guys. Just keep playing the game. Don't play the clock. Play the game. Keep doing what we've done that's gotten us to this point, being up 2-0 at this point, 20 minutes away from a national championship. Just keep doing what we're doing. Don't worry about the clock. We knew Cape Cod was going to make a push. They did. They got a goal to cut it to 2-1 on a power play, actually fairly early in the period. And then they got a goal to tie it with about 9:33 left to go in the game. They tied it up, good play by Jay O'Brien. Well, probably one of the only situations where our D had bad gap, but Jay O'Brien, they break the puck out. He makes a great play to the middle of the ice, just kind of cutting into the zone, gets a puck on net, and he scores, and that tied it up 2-2. But our response from that point was exactly what we needed it to be. I felt we took the game back over right after they tied it. I thought we had several shifts where we had good momentum, we had good zone time in their zone. We took the momentum back almost immediately after they tied it up. So that was a huge response by us, because after they tied it up, you kind of wonder, are they going to have the momentum? Are we going to be able to bounce back from this? How is that going to affect us mentally? And it really didn't faze us. We just got right back to work, and eventually, I think 3 minutes later, we scored to take the lead for good, and we get 2 empty netters late on penalty kills to seal the game at 5-2. And I thought we had 3 penalty kills after they tied it up that were huge. Our penalty kill on the week at Nationals we killed off 42 out of 43 penalties, so our penalty kill was dynamite, and that was a huge contributing factor as to why we won the national tournament. And it just kind of all came together. The last 3-4 games of the season, the commitment level and the buy-in, the belief, the guys really elevated everybody elevated their games to another level. So proud of them, because they went through a lot. Like, we earned it this year. We had to earn it.